So yesterday we had our brand new windows and door fitted, and they look rather nice, I must say. The grey works really nicely against the brickwork, just as we were hoping. So all good on that front. But my job for today is to deal with something which has been annoying us a little bit since we moved in, and that is the fact that this little porch here has no guttering along the front of it. So when it's raining and you're trying to come in the front door, there's just water pouring off the roof here and you get absolutely soaked. So my plan is to just install a line of guttering going along there. Then I'm going to take a downpipe down from here, across to there, down there, and then basically a horizontal bit of pipe here with a slight fall on it, and I'll put little holes in it so that the water can then soak away into this bed at the front here. This is in a bit of a rain shadow here because of the roof. So this will help to water this little bit of front garden as well. So that's my plan for today. Let's get on with it. So the first thing I'm actually going to do is try and clean off some of this moss on this roof here, because it's very loose. You can just literally pick it up with your finger. So what's going to happen otherwise is when it rains heavily, all of this moss is just going to wash into the gutter, and it's going to end up blocking up the whole gutter system. Right, well, it's not perfect, but it's a lot better than it was. There are still a few small bits on there which are just a bit stubborn, but moss growth is quite slow, so as long as I do this once every few years, I should keep the roof relatively clean. So this is all the moss that I managed to get off the roof. It's quite a significant pile, so it's definitely a lot better than just having it there where you can just run into the gutters and cause trouble. So that's a good job done. Next is to start fitting the main gutter. So obviously when you're installing guttering, what you want to happen is for the water to flow from one end to the other, so that it can then go down the pipe and be taken away. And the way you do that obviously is to have a fall from this side to this side. And basically what you want to do is you want to have a fall that is relatively shallow so that it doesn't look cockeyed. And also if you have too much fall, then what you're going to end up with is a gutter that's too high on this side and too low on this side, so the water is likely to overshoot it. So various different sources recommend various different falls, but one common one that seems to come up quite a lot is 1 in 500. And that essentially equates to a sort of a 5mm drop every meter. So this is about a 3-meter span, so we're probably looking at about a 15mm drop. Now, one thing you want to avoid is having a situation where the lowest part of your gutter is situated too low, because what that will mean is when the rain is really heavy, it's going to come shooting off the roof and it's going to overshoot the gutter completely. So what you want to do is you want to have your gutter position at its lowest point so that it's roughly in line with the slope of the roof. So if you extend a line coming out from where this roof slope is, you want that to intersect with the outer edge of the gutter. The reality is that in a very, very heavy rain shower, your gutters probably aren't going to catch all of the water, but you want to do your best to have most of the water caught. So normally when you're working out your fall, you'd start at the lowest point and make sure that the lowest point is still suitable, and then work upwards along the length to the highest point. Okay, so I've fitted the end bracket here to the fascia, and what I'm going to do now is just measure the distance from the brackets to the top of the fascia, and that basically is 3.5 centimeters or 35mm. So now what we can do is go to the other side and we can attach the bracket on that side. So for a 3-meter run, the fall should be about 15mm, but just to be safe, I'm going to go up to 20mm. Because I don't think it'll look too crooked and it will just help with the water flow. Right, so on this side we're just going to measure again, and what we're going to do is make the bracket 15mm rather than 35mm, and that will be minus 20mm, and that will mean that this is 20mm higher on this side. Okay, so I've now attached the bracket on the other side, and what I've then done is I've stretched a string across from the lowest bracket to the highest bracket, and that will give me a nice easy fix for where to attach all of the rest of the brackets. So one thing to point out here is that this method of measuring the lowest point and then removing the fall on this side is that you're assuming that this fascia board is level. And of course, over time, things can get a bit warped, or perhaps it might not have even been installed properly in the first place. So to my eye, looking at this string, it looks like there is a decent fall on that. But what we need to do is just double check that using a spirit level. Right, so what I'm going to do is just offer this up here, but not actually touch the string. Just get really tight and close with that. And there you can see that the bubble is actually slightly off center, it's slightly to the left, and that means that we do have a fall here. So this is all looking good, and now we can actually start to install the guttering. Now, the recommended spacing for these brackets is to put one every meter. This is a span of about 3.5 meters. So technically we could actually probably get away with 3, but obviously I would like it to be a bit more secure than that. So I think I'm going to put one here, one there, and then there's also a join in the middle, because these lengths of pipe aren't quite long enough to do this entire span. So I'm going to use 2 lengths and have a join right in the middle, and that will also be secured to the fascia as well. So the way I'm going to calculate the spacing is to divide this in half. That will give us our midpoint, and then I'll divide that in half again, and that will give us the spacing for the brackets on either side. Okay, so I've installed the next 2 brackets here, and the middle one is going to be this union piece which goes between the join, but I can't put that up yet because this string doesn't give me the exact level of where the inside of the pipe is going to be. So what I'm going to do next is cut 2 lengths of pipe to the correct size, and then I can basically offer this up and make sure that it is secure in the middle. Okay, so I've cut 2 equal pieces, and what I'm doing now is assembling all of the bits. So here we have the end piece, which I've already attached, and now I'm doing the middle bit, which has this union in it, and then on this end there's going to be an end cap. And the way these work is you basically just put the pieces in, and then they have these plastic clips which kind of go around the outside and they hold everything tight. They're pretty difficult to get in, but once they're in, they hold pretty firm. One point to note with this union is there's designed to be a gap in the middle, and the reason for that is because when this PVC gets hot, it expands quite a lot. So on a hot sunny day, this gap is going to reduce, possibly even to the point where the 2 meet in the middle. So it's quite important to keep this gap here, otherwise what's going to happen is on a hot day everything's going to start bending and bowing, which could obviously damage things. Right, we're all installed, everything looks pretty good. I'm just going to quickly do a little test with some water and just make sure that it is actually flowing down properly. All looks pretty good. Put a bit more in. Yeah, that's all flowing very nicely. And in actual fact, that end bit is actually going to be slightly lower once all the pipe work is installed. It's rising a bit up at the moment because it's just sitting on the top of the bracket. So this little pool that you can see here down at the end, that will hopefully disappear once I put all the rest of the piping in. Right, so the next task is to start installing the pipework. As I mentioned before, it's going to essentially come down here, and then along here to essentially feed this front garden. So what I'm going to do first is just measure up the lengths that I need for this straight piece and then that straight piece. And I'm essentially going to just assemble it without attaching anything to the wall. And once I've got it assembled loosely, then what I can do is mark out on the wall all of the places where I need to drill holes for the fixings. Okay, so I've now cut all my pieces of pipe and I've laid them out in the approximate position that they're going to be. It's just kind of held in place with a rock at the moment, but essentially what we got is this little angle bit coming down here. It'll go down the back of the wall, and then this piece running along here will be horizontal, and it'll just have little perforations in the bottom, and that will just allow the water to soak out into this bed. It is a bit of an experiment, this. I'm not 100% sure that it's going to work, but if it doesn't work, we can always adapt the design later down the line. Right, so I'm going to start with the supports for this upright piece first, mainly because this has to be a set distance away from the wall in order for the clips to be in place. So if I do these first, I could end up by accidentally putting it too close to the wall, and that could cause issues. So the way I'm doing this is I'm first looking at the position horizontally and just working out how high this would need to be in that position. And then what I'm doing is I'm putting it upright like this against the wall, and that allows me to just move the pipe into the correct position on a left and right basis like this, and then I can then mark a little notch in the wall with a screwdriver, and that's where I'm going to drill for the screw hole for this clip. Okay, so I've got these two bits of pipe all secured in place now. They're all clipped in and it's all looking pretty good. So now I just need to do this bottom section, which is what is going to feed this planter. So what I'm going to do is just make some holes in the bottom of this. I'm just going to make one hole every 20 centimeters. And the idea would be that this is actually going to be a bit of a reservoir, so this will fill up with water when it rains heavily, and then the small holes will just let the water drain out gradually over time. And then at the far end of this pipe here, there's going to be a plug which is going to go over the end. Don't actually have that at the moment. I need to order that separately, but I'll get everything sorted out in the meantime. We can give it a bit of a test. Okay, so I've got the bottom piece now installed. There is a very, very gentle slope on it, but it's almost level, and that's exactly what I wanted, because basically I want the water to be almost even all the way along before it comes out of the holes. I've done a temporary solution for an end cap at the moment, but I am going to order a proper one. It's just that Screwfix, which is where I got all the rest of the stuff, doesn't do those end caps for some bizarre reason. So that will come later, but for now this is pretty much done. So now what we'll do is just give it a quick test and make sure that it is doing what it's supposed to do. There's our water in the gutter, going down to the end, comes down the pipe, and there you can see it's all dripping out of the little holes all the way along. So that looks pretty decent actually. I'm pretty happy with that, and that will just gradually let the water out into this front garden here and keep it nicely watered. And it all looks pretty neat from the front as well. It doesn't look too out of place. So yeah, pretty happy with that. I think we can call that job done.